I am Gilbert Cedillo, joined by Mr. Councilmember Felipe Fuentes and Councilmember Marquise Harris Dawson. April 6, 2016, Housing Committee.
Mr. Chair, would you like to take item 1?
I'd like to take the public comment first. Is that okay?
Yes.
Dispense with that. We have Patricia McAllister here. One minute. I want to do general, then we'll go into the one item.
When I first heard of this project, I immediately thought of illegal aliens. You're doing all that you can to accommodate illegal aliens. It's not unusual to have 25, 35 illegals in one unit, and which devastates these property owners' properties. I don't agree with this. I don't think we need to be doing this. We need to be building affordable housing. We need to stop stealing and embezzling funds. And we need to quit smuggling illegal aliens into Los Angeles and giving them our houses, affordable housing, paying $50, $60 a month. Some of these illegals are subleasing these affordable units and making money, profits. And we also need to give these jobs to the people who are citizens and not illegal aliens. So I see this as nothing but accommodating illegal aliens, and of course somebody's making some money off of this, probably the property owners, charging maybe double rent. I don't agree with this entire provision.
Next. Wayne from Encino.
What's it, item 1?
General public comment.
Yeah. Well, downstairs, I appreciate the fact that I was kicked out of the meeting and not allowed to have my 1 minute of public comment. So now I will have it. You can't get rid of me. You can't get rid of me. I'm like the fucking plague. You can't get rid of me.
You want to talk about something related to housing general?
Yeah, I have a fucking house. I'm not like you. I don't go around and live like a fucking poverty pimp all my life. Okay? I got actual job skills. But you don't let me work. You don't let no one talk. You can't work, you can't talk. And you sit in the city and you keep raising every fucking fee and tax and sending the building inspectors out like a swarm of locusts.
3 seconds.
So, fuck you.
Next. Okay. Let's go. We are now item 1.
Okay. Item 1, Department of City Planning verbal report relative to any joint memorandum of understanding with the Housing and Community Investment Department for the purpose of the newly formed housing unit.
Okay. Let's dispense again with the constitutional sanity. Item 1, please focus your comments on item 1. Wayne from Encino. Focus, please, so that you don't get kicked out again.
Yeah, right. Mr. Kickout. It's just another report on what? Bullshit. It's the same thing, different day. Another report. Another worthless waste of paper and time. You're not building housing. You're moving the people around that are homeless and calling it progress. So that's the reason why you get 60 lousy fucking seconds to talk. Because you've already wrote the report, you've already made the conclusion, you've already given the money to your developer, campaign donor, amigos, and friends. So all these people here are only here to bag the money up, collect it, and run out of town in time to gamble in Vegas. Bullshit.
Next. Thank you very much. Is this Mr. Jonkers?
Prentice Jenkins, published a City Life newsletter, activist since 1991. This gentleman's eating. Is this lunch break and a meeting at the same time? Because I would have brought my veggie burgers.
Subject matter, please.
Oh, okay. That's not the subject matter. This guy's eating. Yeah. I don't know how many of these houses are going to house people without houses. Aren't houses designed to house people who don't have houses? How many of these houses are going to actually house people who don't have houses? I believe they call them, my esteemed learned colleague, homeless. Are they going to house homeless? Because, you know, we got thousands of homeless down there. They looking for a bowl of soup right now. I guess. Oh, that would look good to them right there. Those homeless sitting out there with nothing to eat, no homes. But we're talking about houses here. I guess this determines whether you can afford that house or not, huh?
Let's have, let's start with the, bring the department up. Yes. I don't have a card for her, I'm sorry. Patricia McAllister.
Okay, I'm interested in this number one here. It says here, we want to know the purpose of the newly formed Housing Committee, and that's this committee. Its timeline for implementation and priorities and prioritizing land use policies to help expedite the creation of new housing. Now, I've been coming to these meetings for about 5 or 6 months. You guys haven't done a darn thing. Every time I come in here, it's the same old, same old. The people from the departments are not giving you the information you need. You're not pushing on them. You're not educated. I don't know how you got on this committee, but you got on this committee thinking you're going to get away with something. But you didn't know people like me would be coming here holding you accountable. I'm a teacher, and I grade all of your Fs. You don't know the game. You're not trying to learn the game. You're trying to fudge it. You can't fudge this. People are on the street. This is serious business. Either you learn your job, or we going to unelect your ends. Only 20% of the people are voting anyway, 20 out of 100. We're going to get you out of office, so you better learn your job and do your job and quit trying to make money under the table.
That completes our public comment. Let's get the department up. Welcome. Good to see you. Very excited about you joining us. I'm very excited about the prospects of us working together on figuring out how we can build more housing. How this will, go ahead. I'm sorry. Hear from you first.
Thank you, Chair, City, and members
Yes.
of the committee. Vince Bertoni, Director of City Planning. I also have with me Claire Bowen and Ken Bernstein from our policy portion of the planning department here in the City of Los Angeles. So first I want to thank you for the opportunity to this committee to provide an update this afternoon on our affordable housing initiatives. This Department of City Planning is ready to play a leadership role in addressing the housing crisis. And as you know, the city is experiencing an unprecedented housing costs and has achieved the dubious status as the most unaffordable city in the nation. The city has the greatest mismatch between housing costs and incomes. And with all the cuts with both state and federal resources devoted to housing, there's probably never been a time when planning and land use represented a more important piece of the affordable housing puzzle. The Department of City Planning has already taken the lead in preparing a number of ordinances to facilitate the creation of more and more affordable housing, especially in targeted growth areas. These proposals have emerged thanks to the leadership of the City Council in identifying and prioritizing.
Mr. Bertoni, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Spindler is disrupting the meeting from the back of the room. He's
Mr.
talking
Spindler,
towards
you
the
are
wall.
you are disrupting the meeting, Mr. Spindler. This is your first warning.
Thank you, Mr.
If you
Chair.
continue, you will be again escorted out of the room. They seem to be having some problems with that today, sir. Again, I want to warn you. You have been warned. If this continues, you will be asked to leave the room.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bertoni.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
As I was mentioning, these proposals have emerged thanks to the leadership of the City Council in identifying and prioritizing through a number of motions a variety of strategies. These include linkage fees, House LA, value capture, and the most recent motion that was introduced this morning regarding a comprehensive homelessness strategy and the creation of permanent supportive housing. We want to thank the Council for your support in providing our department with our new housing unit, and which is part of our citywide policy team, and is being led by Matt Glesney of our staff, as well as funding 2 additional staff positions. We'll be hoping to fill those in May. Additionally, thanks to the council action, we're able to add a specialized housing service function at our Development Services Center, better known as our public counter, at what we have called the new deep counter, which is where we help housing projects, those who come in with housing applications, with both pre-application services and post-entitlement services to make sure that the applicants have a smooth process before they submit the application and afterwards, after they've gone through the applications process. To accompany this effort, the department is also implementing our Priority Housing Project program, or we always have to have acronyms, that's a PHP, where affordable housing projects that meet the criteria that were set forth in Executive Directive 13 receive priority processing through the appropriate geographic teams, and we're starting to restructure our department into geographic teams. And through that process, we'll have hopefully better service. Our new housing unit within the policy team will now have the capacity to begin addressing the approximately 20 council motions that have been adopted addressing housing, and to start to bring forward policy recommendations and proposed ordinances that will be incorporating these ideas to both the City Planning Commission and the City Council for consideration. Another area that we're working on is a linkage fee study. Our department is looking forward to the opportunity to collaborate with our partner, which is Housing and Community Investment Department, in developing the linkage fee study. We'll be expediting the completion of this study, and so that it can be completed, we hope, within 5 months by late summer. Now, we're now finalizing the retention of our project consultant as part of that. While any ordinance resulting from the study will reside in the zoning code, the funding for this study came from the Housing Trust Fund, and the monies that accrued from the ordinance will be directed to that trust fund. Planning and HCID therefore took the step of executing a MOU, or Memorandum of Understanding, just to put in place a memorialization of the collaboration between our 2 departments for this really important project. Another initiative we're working on is House LA, and we've reported back separately to this committee, as well as to the Planning and Land Use Management Committee of the City Council, on the package of the House LA motions that were initiated by the chair, and we look forward to prioritizing this work and the motions as we ramp up our new housing unit, which we're just starting. While these motions address multiple topics, we see an opportunity to address many of the individual topics together as we address our key housing ordinances and procedures. For example, as we consider our density bonus ordinance, we'll be looking to incorporate strategies that support the development of microunits, allow the use of existing permitted floor area by eliminating caps on the overall number of units, and as well as streamline SEQA review and the site plan review process. Another area we're looking at is value capture. Our department has separately been directed to report back on the concept of value capture. So we plan on detailing strategies that would enable the inclusion of affordable housing in large projects that are requesting zone changes and or general plan amendments. Many projects today propose zone changes in lieu of providing affordable housing utilizing density bonuses. Our report will outline for the City Council potential options to expand the use of density bonuses and increase the availability of affordable housing. Last but not least, our homeless housing strategy. We'd like to thank Councilmember Cedillo for the new council motion that was introduced this morning that directs the Department of City Planning to evaluate and develop strategies to support the development of a range of homeless housing options, in particular permanent supportive housing through a ministerial process. This is an important addition to the recent ordinances adopted by the council, streamlining the approval of our new homeless shelters. So with that includes the planning presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions, and again, we have planning staff available.
Questions from the committee? Sorry.
Mr. Bertoni, on that last item you mentioned, it's important. Why? Because it gives more flexibility, or
Yeah.
we can identify some additional funding? Or what makes that special?
On the homeless strategy?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
This is Claire Bowen. Is this on? Claire Bowen, City Planning. One of the opportunities that we think that the homeless strategy that Councilman Cedillo introduced this morning is that today we do not have permanent supportive housing actually as a housing category in our zoning code. So anybody who's applying to do a permanent supportive housing project actually has to pursue it through kind of a traditional apartment building. You then are subject to the same kind of density limitations and the same kind of parking requirements that a traditional apartment building would do. And you have to go through our kind of lengthy process. We think given the importance of permanent supportive housing, we're going to be looking at ways to facilitate developers being able to come in and actually develop permanent supportive housing more through a by right project process.
Thank you. Thanks.
Others? Mr. Salson? Mr. Bizarro? So talk to us on timeline for us staffing you up and what resource.
Ken
resource
Bernstein, Department of City Planning. We again thank the council
What do you
for
need
its
and how
support
many
on the
people do you
housing.
need?
We have authorization for the positions. We have to go through, of course, our civil service hiring process, which we are in the midst of hiring planners. We are hopeful that we'll have the staff in place for the housing unit and citywide policy by May, and be able to fully ramp up with the initiatives that Mr. Bertoni just described.
That's awesome. And then this unit will help us integrate some of the other components, for example, of house LA or value.
Exactly.
What do we call it? Value capture. Right?
And if I may, good afternoon, council members. My name is Claudia Monterrosa from HZLA, and we're very happy to see this motion introduced by you, Council Member Cedillo, and we really look forward to working with planning much more closely than in prior times, but we have deep experience working together in a coordinated effort on a variety of policy issues, land use policy issues in particular. As they mentioned, the linkage fee that we're currently working on together, and in prior instances, working on density bonus, on the CASP, the Cornfield Rural Seco specific plan, and other specific land use provisions. And this the creation of this new housing land use unit is going to provide another way to work together and address affordable housing citywide policy issues that may have implications to the work that HCID does. So we look forward in coordinating and working very closely with them and entering into an MOU to work on remaining issues such as the House LA motions, streamlining of affordable housing permitting process, micro units, short-term rentals, value capture, TFAR. It's a whole bunch of a wholesale of items that are still pending that we'll all address to either through land use or through creating financing sources, increase the supply, and to preserve affordable housing.
Thank you. I applaud this effort of the MOU and trying to figure out. I know there were efforts in the beginning for us to try to figure out how to redo all the departments and merge them, et cetera. I think this is more of a kind of organic growth that can figure out the areas where the overlaps can be kind of merged, if we may. Colleagues, any other questions? Okay. What's that?
Item number 2 is communication from the City Planning Commission and draft ordinance amending the Los Angeles Municipal Code to create a process for granting legal status and currently existing unapproved dwelling units in multiple family buildings.
Yes, I'm happy this is here today. Come on up, we want to hear about doing this, and Mr. Fuentes, you've been the leader on this.
If it's okay with the chair, this proposed ordinance has been out since the Citywide Planning Commission issued it on February 25th, so maybe it'd help if the public comment were taken first.
Yes.
So this way it'll inform the conversation, because I think folks have had an opportunity to sort of see what's in the proposal.
Mr. Jenkins, Wayne from Encino.
Prentice Jenkins,
Tricia McAllister.
City Life newsletter publisher, activist since 1991. And no, I have never, or have I ever been, a member of the Communist Party. Thank you. I'll say again, how many of these houses are going to be set aside for homeless individuals? And is it possible to put homeless individuals with areas that are being gentrified? Because, you know, downtown's being gentrified. Gentrified means well-to-do, young white urbanites, half straight, half gay, which is fine. It does not mean you're supposed to have homeless mixed in there. They're going to take Skid Row and gentrify it and turn it into the Row, where 400,000 lofts. Those missions will be $400,000 loss when they get through.
Wayne.
So, amnesty. Yes, amnesty for zoning violators. It's great. That's exactly what we need, so that we can have more Airbnb units and call them granny flats. But on your special meeting, you fucked up, and the court told you, go to hell. Like I'm doing today, because all these judges around town, they're just chomping at the bit to get you into court on these items. That's why on the bottom, if you challenge this committee's action in court, you may be limited to raising only those issues you or someone else raised at the meeting. Yeah, and I'm raising it because it's bullshit. So the only way to have zoning, if it's not supposed to be there, tear that shit down. Mr. President, tear down those bullshit violating fucking structures now.
Patricia McAllister.
As long as I've been coming to these meetings, nothing from this committee has ever been said about illegal aliens living in affordable housing. Not one word. As a matter of fact, when I say illegal aliens, you guys look at me like you want to shut me down. Here's the thing. I lived around gays, and I want to address what he said, and I had to move. They fight all night long after they get through banging each other in the butt.
The speaker isn't speaking to the item before us.
item,
Item
please.
number 2.
This is item
deals-
2, isn't it? What item are you on? Yeah, that's what I'm on. The existing is what I'm talking about.
Okay.
Item 2.
Nope.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Leave the gay out. I forgot. That's another thing. We're going to talk about gay people. But anyway, I moved. I couldn't take it. But anyway, I'm concerned about fire hazards. I'm concerned about illegal aliens living in this affordable housing. And how many black people? We got 3 Negroes on this council. And I was telling somebody earlier, they know house Negroes. They know your lineage. They know I'm one of the field Negroes. They know that. You can't push me around. You house Negroes need to do something for your people. Get all these Mexicans off your staff and hire some black people.
Mr. Chair, if you would warn the speaker, she's not speaking to any of the items that are on the agenda today, and I think that deserves at least the first or second warning by now.
That's not true.
Mr. This is well noted. We will need you to speak to the subject matter. Endless rants on undocumented who live in this city do not add to the discussion or the dialogue. People should know what they're talking about or have some semblance, although that's not a constitutional requirement. People can be as ignorant as they want when they come here, but they can't be ignorant beyond the parameters of the framework of this discussion. So I would encourage those who think that this is just a opportunity to say whatever is on their mind when they woke up this morning, that is not the case, and so we will be bound by the constitutional parameters of this committee. We have Richard Osterstrom, Carlos Aguilar, and Michael Millman.
Good afternoon. Rick Otterstrom from Agla. A decade ago, I was tasked with being an owner in a group discussion between owners and tenants, and we came up with a good program that was called primary renovation. It's still in place. Jim Hildebrand from the Housing Department crafted that, and we were all ready to go in with the tenants, and we went to the RAC. That's who we saw, and the RAC changed everything, and it was unusable for the owners, and it sit dormant. Maybe 95% of the people who could use it didn't use it, maybe more than that. That's what happened, and it was not used. The same thing is going on now with the program for the units that we're talking about today. The housing department, not the housing, sorry, the planning department has changed everything that the tenants and owners went together and liked, and we're going to have the same kind of problems with that one. The owners will not be able to use it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Carlos, Carlos?
Carlos Aguilar, Coalition for Economic Survival. The hope was that this was another example of tenant and landlord groups working together to find common ground for the greater good. Unfortunately, landlords, as you hear, may be backing out of a compromise that they had agreed to. Nevertheless, the fact is that non-permitted housing provides affordable roofs over many heads. This plan is an effort to ensure these units are preserved and are legally maintained healthy, safe, and affordable. To lose these units would only increase our housing crisis and displace more tenants. We have a real opportunity to make this a win-win situation. Tenants keep their affordable units and they're brought up to code, and landlords get a legal unit they receive income from without being cited. We thank Councilmember Fuentes for providing leadership on this and urge this committee to adopt this ordinance. Thank you.
Mr. Miller?
Yeah, good afternoon. I'm going to go off record for a second to thank the committee for traveling out to Santa Monica to pay respect and love to a friend of ours and my good neighbor, Bill Rosenthal. I'll come back on my message. Let's be clear here. Councilman Fuentes gave a strong, powerful, decisive leadership, said cut a deal that would be fair to the owners and fair to the tenants. Protect the tenants in perpetuity under the RSO. They worked for 40 months, 50 months. They made the deal. It was an amnesty. It went up to planning on the 6th floor, and it got sabotaged, and it got hijacked, and now there's a 55-year deed restriction. It's not gonna work. Let's just go back to the drawing table and let's get this thing done, because there's a lot of units that we can bring into the light and make completely kosher. This got sabotaged, I'm sorry to say, by one person. I apologize. I don't want to personalize it, but that's wrong for all the hard work and the leadership. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Ira Belgrade, thank you. Randall Moses, and then Jim Bickhart. Anywhere?
Ira Belgrade. When the City Council unanimously approved Council members Cedillo and Fuentes' motion to facilitate accessory dwelling units, they were following what Harvard University, UCLA, nonprofit urban design group Lamas, and the California legislature have all said. Accessory dwelling units help societies deal with many different types of housing issues. We cannot allow the outdated thinking of one Cheviot Hills homeowner to prevent our city from dealing with its urgent housing needs. We must immediately repeal the outdated 1985 Granny Flat Ordinance and let AB 1866 be in effect again so we may be consistent with state law, at least until we can craft an even better ordinance that works for us in 2016 and beyond. Thank you so much for your time.
Mr. Chair, I think that testimony was with item on the special agenda, dealing with the lawsuits with the accessory dwelling units, not the non-conforming units that we're talking about. So I don't know if Mr. Bickard is here from CD5. Is that the office that you're in, Jim? Okay, so you're probably here on that item as well. Got it. Okay. All right.
Got it.
Yeah. So maybe we can attribute those comments to the special agenda.
Yes.
We will hold
And,
that.
and I'd be happy to say them again when that comes up.
No, I think we got
Keep them in mind.
Thank you.
Mr. Moses.
I am also addressing your special segment here because we're one of the people who are stuck in the middle. We are converting a unit that has been in existence since 1953 for our mother who needs a place to live. We did it through permits. We've done it through the city. We are halfway in construction, and we comply with both.
You're addressing item on the special agenda,
Correct.
not item number 2, which is before us. So I think we need to have you come back,
Hold that
Mr.
testimony.
Chair.
Hold the thought.
That's the next item.
And we will call you in 1 minute.
I'm
shortly.
sorry, Mr. Chair, for jumping in there, but I
No.
don't want to confuse folks in the audience with an already difficult conversation on unpermitted units.
Mr. Bickart, you are here on this item.
Council staff also appreciates being relieved from the confusion. Jim Bickart from Councilmember Koretz's office. We want to reiterate the thanks to Councilmember Fuentes for his leadership on this issue. We have a couple of comments. Firstly, on section I-4, performance standards regarding signage, it says any illegal signage should be removed. We don't see why it shouldn't say any illegal signage shall be removed. I mean, if it's illegal signage, it should be removed. So there's no need to just say should. Knowing what the enforcement situation is likely to be, we understand that
You're making a distinction between will and shall?
Should and shall.
Should and shall.
Should and shall. It's probably important to clarify for applicants at the time when they apply, it's clear what their obligations are. And this is kind of an internally contradictory way of wording it. Secondly, on a broader aspect of it, we would like to encourage you to make sure that staff clarifies on the public record for everybody what the status of existing tenants of these unapproved units will be as they are put through the application process to be legalized, given the kinds of constraints that are going to be put on them. Some of those tenants probably don't qualify as, very low or moderate or low-income tenants, and it's our understanding that existing law, the rent stabilization ordinance, offers them some protection, but it should be made clear to everybody exactly how that works. So that's all we have to say. Otherwise, Councilmember Koretz supports the ordinance.
I have Anthony Nassarian. How are you doing, sir?
I'm not sure if this topic was already discussed. I just got here.
Item 2.
Item 2.
And that's what you signed up for, item 2.
Okay. Let me explain my situation briefly. I obtained a permit for a second dwelling in Tahanga 2 years ago. I began construction.
No, this is also on the special agenda item number 1. So the next item that we'll be discussing will be dealing with that. So this is item number 2.
A little premature.
Yeah.
This is item you wrote 2, but you're really here for special item 1.
All right.
That's okay.
Okay, but hang on, hang out. We'll get to you next.
Mr. Singh, Jaspal Singh. So are you here for this item 2, or are you here for this discussion on special item 1? Special 1. Okay. We will be there in 1 minute. We're not there yet. And then all of you will be called back. Okay. That closes public comment on that. Mr. Fuentes.
Great, thank you, Mr. Chair. Let's go ahead and have staff come back up, and I feel compelled to talk a little bit about what this motion does so that it alleviates some of the questions or concerns or the confusion that might be out there as a result of some of the mixed public testimony. Colleagues, and in particular, Mr. Marquise Harris-Dawson, I wanted to sort of speak to you a little bit more, because this is a newer policy that we moved in July of 2015, right before, in June of 2015, right before you joined the council. And so there is a policy problem out in Los Angeles, a housing problem that manifests itself in difficult policy in Los Angeles. We have something called a systematic code enforcement program that goes out and looks at multifamily buildings throughout the city of Los Angeles to make sure that they're in compliance, that they're habitable, and that they're safe, and all of the important things that good units in Los Angeles and their tenants deserve. But we have a very interesting situation in that over time, a lot of these buildings have been converted either rightly or incorrectly to add additional units. And the challenge there is that a lot of these owners, in large part, have inherited some of these situations by no fault of their own when they've purchased buildings, or the rules were a little bit more relaxed. But for whatever reason, you have a tremendous amount of problem out there in that you have non-conforming units in the city of Los Angeles that, but for a little massaging, could be put into productive and legal status. And so to give you an example, in Council District 9, between the non-RSO and the RSO, rent stabilized ordinance units, in the last 6 years, we've identified over 687 units. So those units, if they're not brought into conformance, we've understood the choice for the property owner is to bring them into conformance, which usually results in having to have very lengthy variance proceedings. In addition to sort of the cost to remediate the unit, there's this time frame that doesn't work. So oftentimes we have to put people through a planning process, to no fault of the planning departments, to conform the unit, but that planning process usually takes much, much longer than the time allowed to the property owner given the orders to comply. So it resulted in, I think, this opportunity for us to figure out how it is that we balance the needs of the property owners and the needs of the tenants so that we can maintain as many units as possible. In Council District 8, you have the second highest identified units, 516, that are non-conforming with the current planning sort of schemes out there. So what this ordinance tries to do is it tries to make it so that there is a ministerial process to assuage some of the things that bring these units out of compliance, but doing it in a way that hopefully reduces the cost and the impact to the property owner as well as the tenant. But in return for the City of Los Angeles offering that flexibility, we're asking that those units now be deemed affordable. And I think that's a very, very good trade. The assertion was made that somehow this process was sabotaged. I take umbrage at that because in this committee we've talked about how it is that you balance the needs of the property owner with the tenant. But at the same time, we should not be impacting residential communities with this relaxation of code and law without the neighborhood, the residents, and the City of Los Angeles gaining something in return. And understanding that the City of Los Angeles is under one of the worst housing crises in America, the obvious thing is to figure out how to conform the unit, protect the property owner in terms of further prosecution from the building and safety and planning departments, make it so that the tenant has the best and highest quality units possible, and that Los Angeles in return gets more affordable units online. So that's the idea behind this measure, and it's taken a little while to get here, but we're, I think, hopefully finally here. But Mr. Bigcart raises a really interesting point. Understanding that all of these units don't necessarily fall, or at least the tenants don't necessarily fall into an affordable sort of definition. One of the things that I wanted to make sure that we offered the property owner is that in trade for this new process, they would designate which unit would be affordable. So long as we're getting something out of it, it doesn't matter to me which the unit is. So it may very well be that the existing tenant that is affected by this new remediation process may not be the beneficiary of the affordability status so long as somebody in the building is. And I'm wondering if the department can sort of help us understand a little bit some of the concerns that Council District 5 shared with us and sort of how that works.
Sure, thank you. Council members, Matt Glesney.
And please correct me, Matt, if I got any of that wrong.
That was perfect.
Thank you, Matt.
I don't have to correct anything. It was a really good summary. On the question from CD5 about the units, you said exactly right. The unit to be designated as affordable does not have to be the unit that's actually being legalized. It can be any unit on the site. And that was a part of being flexible to the apartment owners who may already have a long-term tenant that's already at those rent levels, at that income levels, and so there actually wouldn't be an immediate hit when that tenant leaves out of that unit would have to remain affordable in 55 years, but it would not necessarily affect that tenant of the unit being legalized. In addition, I think the concern was about the rights of those tenants to, if for some reason they have to be relocated, say that there's major work that needs to be done on the property to bring it up to code, to make it safe and habitable. In some cases, tenants do need to be relocated, and there is a process. All the tenants are even if they're in a non-permitted unit, are subject to the rights and regulations of the RSO. So they are subject to a fair eviction. They cannot be evicted just for an unjust cause. They would be eligible for the tenant relocation assistance. There'd be no ability to evict a tenant out of a unit that does not exist today. They would be subject to the existing laws. So we felt we did not have to put that in writing. That's existing law. That's the way the housing department has been treating non-permitted units since the RSO came into effect. I believe there are folks from the housing department here that can speak to that, but we've confirmed that and did not feel we needed to put that in the ordinance as existing law.
And, you know, I also want to sort of thank you for the information that had me a little concerned. In terms of understanding how this program would or wouldn't work, I think one of the concerns that I had was we didn't know how big of a problem we would have in terms of conforming units. But as it turns out, and thank you for the information in the reports, 86% of the time, at least through our SCEP proceedings or investigations, we've determined that it's just one unit that's out of compliance. 11% of the time, it's 2 units, and then the remainder ostensibly would be more units than that. So to me, that makes it seem that this program should, at least in concept, it appears would work, because we're only remediating 1 unit, and it's not 3 or 4 or some significant sort of amount. So from a sort of ministerial and building and safety process, I don't think it's going to take up a tremendous amount of resources to get these units into conformance. So thank you for that information. The other thing that I sort of wanted to address is that I have heard that folks are concerned that property owners won't avail themselves of this program. And I have to sort of challenge that assertion a little bit for 2 reasons. One, we don't have a better sort of reaction today to try to figure out how to conform these units. So I think a program like this at least lends itself for us to be able to address any policy concerns, questions, or hiccups that staff can help us, and property owners and tenants can help us identify. So we can continue to massage this if it were to be accepted as an ordinance. So I think we have a way to fix it. But secondly, I think it's important to realize that the systematic code enforcement program is a program that will identify, touch, visit, investigate multifamily buildings within 5 to 7 years thereabouts. I know the department says sort of the rotation in getting to these units is every 5 years. But the point is that you will be looked at if you have a multifamily situation, and so the choice becomes, I think, an easy one. Do you take the unit out of productive use, or do you avail yourself of a program like this one that gives us the flexibility to ministerially, hopefully, assuage some of the things that are out of whack with the underlying land use in the area? So I'm grateful to staff for preparing this and working so hard. The Citywide Planning Commission gave it a vetting, and it seems that it's here before us today. And colleagues, I would urge a favorable vote so we can move this to the full City Council and hopefully get it adopted as an ordinance. So that's my motion.
Great. Move. Any objection? Any comments from
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. Thank you so much for the opportunity to comment. I just want to thank all the members of the committee for having worked on this. This is a issue that was very big in the field, both as a community organizer and as a candidate. I would also like to put into the record, there's often the assertion that there's nothing being done to deal with affordable housing that impacts the black community particularly. The highest concentration of these kinds of units are in the districts with the highest amount of African American people. And so I certainly know in almost every neighborhood we have these units. I know where they are. I lived in one at different points in time in my life. And so I think this is a big step forward for the city. And I just want to thank Mr. Fuentes and the team for making this happen.
Mr. Price?
Yeah, let me too thank my colleague Felipe Fuentes for his leadership on this many months, over the past several months, and the chair and the committee. The chair and committee, as noted, my district has the largest inventory of these illegal units, some 680 or so. And so I think an ability to convert these to lawful housing helps everybody. It's a win-win. And so creating a mechanism for doing it in an orderly, systematic, and relatively painless way, I think is significant. And again, showing some sensitivity for the property owner and also for the tenant as we bring them into conformance in a way that provides greater safety for everyone and helps to secure the investment that property owners have made. So I support this totally. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I forgot to ask staff about the change from should to shall. And the signage that's with respect to, it's not billboard signage, it's with respect to the signage of the building.
That's correct. A number of buildings have put up signage after the fact
Right.
that may not be legal. Yeah, it does say should now. We frankly took that because it's embedded in a section of our code called the public benefits section that has a lot of similar, we call these performance standards. And there was typical language about signage and it had the word should. I don't know if that's a legal reason for that or not. I don't have a huge problem with being should or shall, but I might just want to check with an attorney to see if there's
I was just going to suggest that
constitutional issue with signage or something.
that we talk to the city attorney's office and Building and Safety, because clearly there are rules for signage at Building and Safety in the code. So I think it's just belt and suspenders here. So if it's not with any sort of detrimental impact, then we should change it. But I think we've got time between now and council. I'd also ask that we add an urgency clause to the item as an amendment.
After we clarify, should and shall. Let me add my voice to those who want to acknowledge Mr. Fuentes' leadership on this matter. This has taken time, and he's been disciplined and diligent in moving this forward, and it's going to make an incredible contribution to our ability to develop affordable stock. This net gain is a great approach to it, so it creates flexibility for building owners. We're not being prescriptive, but we are committed to ensuring that we grow the affordability stock as we grow more stock in Los Angeles. So I commend you and call the question if we're good to go. Any objection? Yep. So be the order.
John White, City Clerk, just to verify, you're including the amendments from Mr. Fuentes for the urgency clause and the clarification from the City Attorney with regard to changing language from should to shall.
Correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so be the order. Now we have the public comment on.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Really need to go into the special meeting separate from the regular meeting.
Right. So do we want to do public comment first on the special, and then we go into the.
We'll adjourn the general meeting, the regular meeting, and open the special meeting, and you can do public comment first if you wish.
So we're adjourning, and then we're opening, and now we have public comment for the.
Mr. Chair, so item 1 on the special meeting is the communication from the city attorney relative to the Los Angeles Neighbors in Action versus City of Los Angeles legal case.
Okay, let's have. Wayne from Encino.
People from CD5 striking back. CD5 lawsuit successful. The city of LA put on its ass again by the men in the black robes. They're waiting for you, all the judges. They're ratepayers too. They live in the city. They're fucked by the city. And every time you go to court, they're going to fuck you people. Every time. Because they can't help it. They're so mad. Judges are people. Judges are ratepayers. Judges live in this city and know this city is ran by a fucking set of thugs. So whenever they make a little mistake, you lose. And that's why I love this. Granny flats. Nobody has a granny flat. This is bullshit. Thank you to the nice person in Cheviot Hills next to the beautiful golf course over there on Sunset.
McAllister. And Mr. Jenkins.
I'm against the granny flat too, and as Mr. Fuentes says, Mr. Harris, Dawson, and Price, they have a high rate of granny flats or whatever that is. I disagree. I saw the LASA report. Price alone has almost 3,000 homeless families. Your district has about 2,500. I saw the report. We're not talking about the ones living with the mothers and fathers. We're talking about ones in tents on the street. And when they lost those homes, Hispanics, illegals are buying those homes. So your districts are fastly turning into Hispanic districts. So Fuentes, you could take that bull somewhere else.
Prentice Jenkins, published a City Life newsletter, activist since 1991. We're talking about approving second dwelling units. That's really not going to do anything to curb the homeless situation. You know, there are 134 million structures in America, houses, but there are 320 million Americans. Now, I went to public school, and even I can do that math. Somebody's not going to get a house. Someone won't have a shelter. They're going to sleep out in the rain. Even if you do approve these second dwellings, you can approve as many second dwellings as you want. Somebody's not going to get a house. And I haven't seen this many well-dressed white men since the Republican National Convention. Yeah? There's going to be a lot of gentrification in here. Yeah? There's going to be a lot of gentrification downtown. And all those poor black folks got to be moved over in East L.A.
Sabrina Schiller, Brian Janesco. Brian?
Good afternoon. My name's Sabrina Schiller. I'm here pro bono to represent a tree cutter in Sylmar who, with his wife, converted a garage. Didn't realize it was not legal, was cited by Building and Safety, wanted to do the right thing, and so he went to a draftsperson, got plans, and got permits. He had 30 days because of the citation to get everything done. He invested in a sprinkler system. He invested in a heating system, plumbing repairs, electrical, et cetera, to the tune of in excess of $10,000 of their savings. The day for his final inspection, the note was posted that cease and desist. He's completely trapped in this system, and all of his savings is now tied up in this, and he cannot rent the unit. I'm asking that you approve the matter of ZA 120 or something similar to it. It works for a lot of people. In this particular property, he actually meets the prior condition. I also ask that you do it quickly, please. There are a lot of people trapped in this situation. Thank you.
Brian?
Brian Janesco, architectural designer. Echoing a similar sentiment, been working on a secondary dwelling unit for a client for approximately the past year. Just finished up, got RTI permits just about a month ago, and found out about this through sort of the grapevine. Was completely surprised by it. We've sunk quite a bit of money into it. The clients have sunk quite a bit of money into it. And I think it's unreasonable to proceed like this, so I'd like to see it repealed.
Okay. Is this in Suindor S. Criswell? Steve Appleton? Steve and Daniel Friedman.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. My name is Iswinder Singh Grewal, and I'm here to have the same concern regarding the AB 1866. I totally support that the law, because I'm building a back house on one of my properties, and I did the whole engineering planning and the architectural plan. I go to city 2 weeks ago to submit my plans, and I'm told I can't submit them after investing $15,000 into it. I'm a small-time real estate investor. I would like to, have some action taken by the city as soon as possible on this and see what we can do about it. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm actually here in general to support this similar kind of sentiment. Isvinder Grewal is a friend of mine. He called me. He lives in my neighborhood. We among us in our community in Elysian Valley, many people have taken steps to long-term property owners to leverage the asset in their home in a growing economy to be able to either legally house their family that now may be housed in an illegal unit, or to produce a new unit for family members or potentially for rental. Units that are, the first occupancy is pre-1978 actually fall under, the subsequent unit will fall under rent control. Rent might be set high if it's rented, but nonetheless, those rights follow subsequently. This is a kind of housing that promotes affordability. You'll see who's in the room today. It's all homeowners. It's all small-time folks. It's a bolster for long-term families who have existed in neighborhoods that are changing, that can use their asset to stay in the neighborhood instead of selling out. It's also woven into the fabric of the city. Please find a way to get around this so folks can continue in this process.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, sir. Please.
Thank you. I just want to clarify one thing. You're saying that the pre-1978 rent-controlled units, if a granny flat or whatever we want to call it is built, that would fall under?
Correct. So if the first occupancy is built pre-78, the subsequent unit, either legalizing a non-conforming one or a new one, will in fact fall under rent control. As well, if the house were rented, it would as well. So this is a voluntary process that people are undertaking that actually builds affordability.
I'll confirm that with our city legal team here.
That's
but
my
thank you.
understanding.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Attaches to the property, right? Is this Coco Olagia? Garen Papaya and Arman Marodian. Arman? Is Arman here?
I can start. By the judge making a decision on the Cheviot Health case, I don't think he was realizing the consequences of how drastic the decision was, both on the macro level and on the micro level. On item 2, we just spoke about adding...
Identify yourself.
Garen Papazian. On item 2, we talked about adding affordable housing, net gain stock, and that's exactly what these ADUs were doing. There's a need for affordable housing in the city, and that's what we were providing. On a micro level, now there's confusion with the Department of Building and Safety. There's various levels of building, all the way from someone that had bought a house for this purpose, to someone spent $20,000 for permits and reviews, all the way up to someone building a house and now waiting for a certificate of occupancy, but not able to get it now. So there's significant investment, whether it's by a small homeowner or a small developer, that everything is basically frozen now, and confusion has been created because of the judge's decision. We need a decision to move forward, or someone needs to give some money back, or there needs to be something done about this.
In addition, I'd like to add Coco Polosajian. In addition to Garen's comments, I do hereby also state that with this investment that's made, we are at a standstill. I have a few projects that are at a standstill. The ZA Memorandum 120 allowed for affordable housing, which we basically are offering. In most cases, I don't even collect rent. I collect half the rent. I collect full rent for one unit. Sometimes I just I give both properties for one family to provide affordable housing. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, we do stuff for people. The memorandum has allowed for us to help the less fortunate, and now we're at a standstill with the fact that there's an unknown. I have a project now that I'm shearing, and I can't even complete. And the inspectors have basically told us that they are not allowed to come out and inspect our property any further.
Hey there, Armin Meridian. Mine will be brief and quick. My thing is housing got so expensive, real estate, and quite honest, I can't afford to purchase another house. I'm thinking about the second dwelling, and I've having my architect been working on it, and I gave him some money, and all these people coming here with this concern. My concern is I'm confused, just like everybody else here. So I don't know if I should continue with the project or stop, because there's no answers. I went to the Van Nuys City Hall, and I'm just, move forward or, just stop. So I feel for everybody. Everyone's in a difficult situation, but the quicker the better. So just solve this and get it over with.
Thank you. Armush Sarkeesian. Linda Tallman and Will Wright.
Good afternoon. My name is Anush Sarkeesian. I'm a property owner, and I'm also an attorney representing an individual who's similar to me, has a property in North Hollywood. I'll start with my property. So my property in North Hollywood, I obtained a permit to build a second unit, and the house has actually been built. It's done, and I have photos of the house. I've spent well over $100,000. I'm trying to do something good for the community. I've encountered numerous obstacles in the permit process, spent considerable resources in obtaining the permits and doing everything right, paying the laborers, paying for costs, etc. And now I'm one inspection away from obtaining the certificate of occupancy, and we've been told by our inspector that can't happen as a result of the CA 120, as a result of this court decision. And so my thoughts were to basically propose some type of grandfather clause that would allow individuals like myself and also my client who applied for permits before the judgment February 25th to figure out a way to complete their project and do something good for the community, because that's exactly what this is.
Thank you. Linda Tallman?
Yes, Linda Tallman. I'm an architect in the city of LA, and I have a number of projects that I'm working on right now, which are engaging with the ADU code from ZA Memorandum 120, and we have one project in particular, which we already have ready to issue status. It's been through all the plan check review. It's gone through several layers of engineering, which is required, from civil engineering to structural engineering, geotechnical, etc. So a huge amount of resources and time have been invested over a year of time already. And now, when we're about to start construction, not as bad as some of the other people in this room, but still pretty bad, we are not able to continue at all with this project. So given that half of the people who are impacted by this ruling don't even know about it, I only found out about it because I went down to the building department to extend the ready-to-issue status, and the plan checker told me, I'm sorry, we can't do that. No one was even alerting me to the fact. So we have a problem where people are stopped in their tracks after significant investments have been made, and I think something needs to be done about it.
Thank you. Will Wright with the American Institute of Architects. I want to thank you for your leadership on this. Offer the American Institute of Architects as a genuine resource, as a working group to really help work through this. I think Assembly Member Richard Bloom has something that you can look on. There's some great work that's already been done from Jason Neville with the Mayor's Office and with Matt Glesney, the City Planning Department. I think there's a genuine opportunity to really shape this in a meaningful way. And one thing that I'd like to bring to this table is the idea of this being a workforce development program, because if you're manufacturing some of these ADUs as prefabricated units in LA, you're creating a stream of jobs. You're finding ways to do these houses with greater environmental energy performance. You can even do an off-the-grid house, such as Linda's done with several of her projects. I think there's a genuine opportunity here to take this and move it forward, and I offer the AIA as a resource to do that.
Thank you. Let's bring back on the special item Ira Belgrade. Now you're on point. Well, you can, or you don't have to. I want to give you an opportunity to give you
And I can also add that I'm a homeowner, 20-year homeowner in Councilman Rue's district with an unpermitted ADU that is fully up to code, and I'll be applying for a variance. Hopefully I'll get it. So what I said was that when the City Council unanimously approved Council members Cedillo and Fuentes' motion to facilitate accessory dwelling units, they were following what Harvard University, UCLA, nonprofit urban design group Lamas, and the California legislature have all said. Accessory dwelling units help societies deal with many different types of housing issues. We cannot allow the outdated thinking of one Cheviot Hills homeowner to prevent our city from dealing with its urgent housing needs. we must immediately repeal the outdated 1985 Granny Flat Ordinance and let AB 1866 be in effect again so we may be consistent with state law, at least until we can craft an even better ordinance that works for us in 2016 and beyond. Thank you.
Sir. Randall Moses, Anthony Narcisian. Jaspal Singh.
I am also in the same boat. I am a homeowner who was
Identify
just.
yourself.
I was just informed that our guest
Identify
unit,
yourself, please.
Randall Moses, homeowner, Los Feliz, CD4. We were just notified that our guest apartment, for which we were told was legal and given a certificate of occupancy, wasn't. As soon as it was, we're not doing anything dishonest. We immediately vacated it, applied for permits, paid for permits, have invested it and taken it down to the studs to make it up to code, and now we've been told that we could have to stop. There's no reason. We comply with both AB 1866 and the Granny Flat Code. We're compliant for both, and we're still being penalized and punished for this action. So I ask you all to please adopt it and do it quickly so we can get on with the things that we've already paid permits for.
Thank you. Anthony?
Anthony Narcisian. I'm a homeowner in Tahunga. Like I said earlier, I applied for a second dwelling permit back in 2014. I began construction about 4 months ago, and I've invested so far $200,000, if not more. And right now, if you want to drive by the street, my street will not look nice at all, because if this is adopted and you guys will make me stop building, it's going to look like just 4 walls of concrete, and that's it. Is that what you guys want? No. What I suggest is whoever applied for a permit prior to this ruling should be able to continue, but stop granting permits from now on, but grandfather us in. It's not our fault. What am I going to do with this project now, with this empty land, with retaining walls, and have invested every single penny I have, and I was about to get a loan to continue and have been approved for the loan. I was about to get the funds actually tomorrow.
Thank you,
I put
sir.
a hold on it. So please take that into consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Singh?
Good afternoon. Thank you so much to give me opportunity to say something regarding my matter. This is Mr. Felipe District. I built a second dwelling over there and everything complete. And meter, second you have electric meter, gas meter, everything. For last moment, I'm not able to get certificate of occupancy. Everything according to permit, everything on the Glenox in your district. So I don't know what's going on. Everything legal, everything paid by, everything inspected correctly. So in the movement last minute, I'm not able to get the occupancy. It's a big loss to me.
Thank you for your testimony. Mr. Daniel Friedman? Daniel Friedman and then Carlos Vasquez. That wraps up public comment.
Thank you, Chair, Council members. Appreciate your time. My name is Daniel Friedman. I'm an attorney with Jeffer Mengels, Butler Mitchell. Myself and Ben Resnick represent the real party and interests that were subject to this litigation. That's why I was hoping to speak last, just because I think you may have questions, or I'd like to bring that perspective. Ultimately, I want to first commend Steve Blau and the City Attorney's Office for their great work on this. What happened here was a neighborhood dispute that has blown up and spun out of control and has created impacts for the whole city. Ultimately, what's important to understand about what's coming before you is that there is a judge's decision which did not say that the city's policy was improper. They did not say that implementing the rules that were in place were improper. He just said that the way it was done was improper. But He didn't specify how it should be done. Ultimately, he just said, in this one case, I think it could have been done slightly differently, which is a different interpretation of the law than a lot of other cities have. But what's important also to understand is that the city right now is stuck between a rock and a hard place. There is no alternative permitting scheme available. A new scheme needs to be prepared. The old permitting scheme in the municipal code does not apply. It's already been viewed and decided upon as being improper and illegal under the state code. So I'll end it there. Thank you very much.
Just a question. You said two things. You said that you did not say that there was any problems with the law or the rules, but rather the execution, and then you closed by saying, however, we don't have an alternative, and we can't use those old rules or laws.
Yeah, and
That's an inherently contradictory statement.
believe me, this is a contradictory case. It's a very strange situation. It's unlike anything I've ever seen. I'll grant that I'm relatively young, but here is the situation in a nutshell. The city decided, based on the city attorney's wise advice, that the current code in place within the municipal code is illegal under the state law. And it's illegal because of various reasons, but there's a whole list, and I'll leave it to the city attorney's office to explain those.
Thank you. All right. You are Carlos?
Yes.
How are you?
I'm actually here representing the homeowner. He paid almost like $6,000 for permits to demolish an existing garage they had and to add a second dwelling unit. The work was already done. We already demoed out all the driveway, the garage, and we went through a long process trying to get permits, and we just get this notice saying that to stop work. And any changes that you guys are planning on doing, it makes sense to do that to someone that's planning for now on, Pause it for a moment until you guys come up to a conclusion. Not for someone that's in the middle of a construction, because they're not able to use their own driveway. They can't even go to their yard. It's all dirt. I mean, it's just in the middle of a construction. So if there's anything you guys can do to help, just to make this process go faster or something, that would surely be helpful.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. We're clearing the room now? Okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
is it okay if we have the city attorney explain to the audience why it is that we're clearing the room? Because I don't want them to think that we're not having a conversation in the spirit of their concern. So I think it'd be helpful for those first-time people.
Certainly, I'd be happy to. Under the government code, this committee is allowed to meet with its counselor and hear advice regarding litigation that is pending against the city. Under those circumstances, the legislature has allowed for this committee to meet with its counselor in private. Thus, we have closed sessions for the limited purpose of having those discussions.
Thank you for, Council, thank you for, Council, thank you for that. And we're prepared to clear the room. Let's clear the room, please. Thank you. She just did that, though. Please.
Committee members, the Housing Committee may recess to close session pursuant to Government Code Section 5495.6D1 to confer with its legal counsel relative to this matter.
Okay, we returned to special session. We were in closed session, and we have a recommendation from our council on how to proceed. You want to read the recommendations? Your advice during the closed session that we should proceed in this manner.
Rather than stating what was advised or what happened in closed session, I think
Yes. Subsequent to our meeting in closed session, the committee will commence with an action. You want to read the proposed action?
The recommendation of the Housing Committee will be to repeal the city's second unit ordinance codified in Los Angeles Municipal Code sections 12.24, W.43, and W.44. To declare any building permit for a second unit issued pursuant to the 2003 interdepartmental correspondence or the 2010 memorandum to be valid and effective if the permit otherwise complies with all state and local laws. I believe there was additional language you wanted to add, Mr. City Attorney?
I believe the proposed action would be also to recommend that council and the Department of City Planning take whatever steps are necessary to implement the proposal as soon as possible, and also recommend that the Department of Building and Safety continue to allow inspections and plan check to continue on second dwelling unit permits issued prior to February 25th, 2010, with a caveat to the homeowners that the court order and judgment are out there.
You said February 25th,
2016.
Correct, 2016. Okay. Good. That's the proposal. Any objection? So be the order. That clears our calendar. Calendar's cleared. Motion to adjourn. So be the order. Meeting is adjourned.